Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GlobalLogic Cafe LinkedIn Live Conversations. Our LinkedIn Live conversations on the GlobalLogic Cafe are going to be all about careers, technology, leadership, and diversity. We welcome our speakers for today. Introducing our host for today, Ms. Ashwini Nandini, Vice President Engineering and Head of Delivery Excellence at GlobalLogic. Let's welcome Nandini with a huge round of applause.
Good morning, good evening, everyone, depending upon which part of the universe you are in. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the LinkedIn Live session. We have a very interesting topic for you today, innovate and accelerate with disruptive technologies. And we have a fantastic guest as our speaker today. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce Sruthi Kannan. Shruti is a senior leader with CISCO, where she orchestrates meaningful outcomes for startups which are in the scale-up journey with CISCO Launchpad. She works very closely with the deep tech founders, and she helps in fine-tuning business strategies, co-creating digital solutions, open up joint go-to-market opportunities with them, and also instrumenting the follow-up funding. As a member of the CII National Startup Council and TIE Charter member, she's a strong advocate of startups that play a critical role in accelerating and amplifying the goodness of digital transformation. Thank you so much, Shruti, for accepting to be our speaker. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll have a great conversation. Just for the audience, this is a 45-minute session where we will try to keep the conversation flowing for about 30 minutes. And we will have a dedicated 15 minutes for the Q&A session. So I will urge all of you, feel free to type in your questions. We will try and address as many questions as we can. 15 minutes is a good enough time. And in case we are unable to address any of your questions, we do have the database. We will definitely find a way to address your questions later. So with this, again, a warm welcome, Shruti, to our LinkedIn Live session. Thank you so much for accepting.
Thank you, Nandini. My pleasure.
All right. So, Shruti, I'll get started with my first question. See, every few years, there's a lot of these predictions on, the technology, right? There's this buzzword, and this is going to be the next big thing. And I know about some of the predictions which have actually come true, right? Like there was a prediction that by 2020, millions of consumers will start using augmented reality for, for their shopping experience, and that's come true. And today it's not just about a furniture or an art for your home. It's even simple thing like a shade of a lipstick, right? Somebody wants to try it out before actually buying it. So basically, it's become that ubiquitous. And a lot of predictions about there are many IT organizations which will not invest in IT assets. And again, that has come true thanks to the cloudification, which has taken a huge huge stride. And a lot of people spoke about, many people will transact electronically using mobile and internet technologies. Again, that has come true. And people spoke about hyper-personalization, which is true, right? Today, we are getting delivered services which are hyper-personalized across channels. So I want to understand, being working closely with so many startups and being in the midst of tech disruption, what's your take on what are the predictions which you believe have lived up to its the hype and promise? And what are some of the predictions which could not live up to its hype and promise? So if you can just throw your views on that.
Sure. So I'm probably one of the Bangaloreans who think of the traffic in a very optimistic sense. In the older normal days when we were stuck in jams, I used to think of whether I could get a drone delivering samosas and pakoras so that we can enjoy them while still being stuck in the jam, listening to some good music. But having said that, I think these technologies are actually coming to life today. And we are seeing announcements like the drone tech coming to the fore for vaccine delivery. So I think disruptive tech is definitely coming to the fore. But if we look at some of the buzzwords, of technologies that you just mentioned, if we take them one by one, say blockchain, for instance. So this has been a long spoken about buzzword, especially in the finance sector. I think it has taken off quite a bit. Whilst in other industries, though it does have quite a good amount of potential, I'm seeing that there is a longer way for it to come through and make a bigger impact. The RPA, the robotic process automation, which again has been a buzzword for quite some time now. I think that also, though it has been in the ITES space, it still is again a longer way, much more of the highway for it to cover until it gets into the mainstream and consume processes in its entirety. I really loved your anecdote of the AR VR tech for the lipstick. In fact, I do know of a couple of startups which had attempted this, but unfortunately, these still have been in the phase where they have been attempted but not yet brought into total mainstream. So which means that there is still a potential and a longer way for them to come through and become mainstream. Like for instance, in the days today, in areas like retail, where we are not able to go outside to shop, AR/VR could actually come in and help us to pick the right fruits or the right vegetables that we may want to buy from a shop, for instance. Out of all of these, I think AIML is probably the one that has mostly lived up to its expectation, predominantly because it has cut across all sorts of boundaries. It has not restricted itself to a sector, say finance or supply chain or such. It has cut across boundaries. It has cut across sectors. And this combined forces, the combined innovation across all these sectors has contributed to the eminence and the coming up and the maturing of AI ML big time. So that's my thought process on this.
No, perfect. You rightly said, I think AI ML has definitely lived up to its hype and expectations, and it's been able to, it's managed to cut across industries and domains. And you see an AI ML almost everywhere, and almost every organization having its own AI ML platform. So obviously, it's managed to live up to its expectations, and I kind of agree with you on that. All right, so I'll move on to my next question, which is, okay, we spoke about, the tech predictions from the past, which have lived up to its hype. So the next one would be, the predictions for the future. So while we have the usual suspects like, quantum computing, 5G, hyper-personalization, DevSecOps, blockchain, AI, ML, and whatnot, I believe that, the last 1 year, thanks to the pandemic and the way we've all managed to live our life and adjust to the new normal, which seems to be it's going to stay for some more time. I mean, we don't know for how long, but looks like we got to adjust to this. So I strongly believe that there's going to be a lot of investments in accelerating technologies for this new normal. Like to take an example, this visual collaboration tools and technologies, I think there's going to be a lot of investment in that. So that's where we will see edge AI, cloud AI, to make sure that this virtual collab experience is taken to another level altogether. So that's something that I believe will strongly take a lot of focus. And I also believe that the network has never been tested like it has been in the last 1 year, with almost every aspect of life being dependent on it, right? Whether it's education, social, work from home, businesses, everybody. And I think, to give credit, the service providers have lived up to the expectations, have risen to the occasion, and we've managed to have a seamless experience. But I think this is where the value of edge will become more and more prominent, with more and more apps and data starting to live very close to the edge, so that the users, the businesses, everybody gets a much better experience. And also contactless and touchless interactions with employees and consumers, which was a nice to have feature in the earlier times, but today it's required, right? We do not want to touch anything, and we still want to give a seamless experience. So these are, I believe, to be the technologies to look forward to in the coming times. Of course, there's a lot of hype around quantum technology, and also this low code, no code, where these platforms, where the entire onus is shifting from programmers to the SMEs. So I wanted to understand your take on what do you think are the technologies. Let's say if you and I chat like a couple of years from now, what are the technologies which we believe will be able to live up to its hype and the buzzword? So wanted to take your opinion on that.
No, I totally concur with you on that, Nandini, especially this pandemic, because it has placed all of us people, individuals, and teams apart. It is more the need of the hour to use digital technologies for whatever it takes to make collaboration much more easier and simpler. And the digital highway, as we call it, the network part of it, is now a taken for granted thing. It's like a mandatory thing, just like water and air and electricity. We definitely need the digital highway for us to survive. So network as a service or as a service provider, I think it is definitely much needed stuff for us today. So if I were to just extrapolate it, I would think that technologies that simplify the way that we live life today, make it much more intuitive, make it much more simpler, automate a lot of the mundane stuff, and help see the intersection of different technologies, be it IoT or machine to machine communication or AI, ML. We spoke about robotics, drones, and such. So what I think the intersection of all of these, which makes intuitive stuff for us, is what I would think is going to be a very huge game changer in the coming days. And of course, this is going to bring a lot of privacy and security challenges as well, which means that there is a whole gamut of opportunities for the software industry to continue to be fully engaged in all of these. I think there are a couple of studies in this direction as well, where I would like to also borrow some insights from a study by PwC, which has listed the essential 8 technologies and all that we spoke about, automating trust, making seamless, immersive interfaces through AR, VR, or IoT and such, extending the reality and providing autonomous working spaces online and offline, providing a digital reflection through technologies like these, and providing hyper connected network is what is going to be very, very important for us in the coming days.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. So from a technology to technologists, so I'll move to a question which a lot of technologists I think grapple with, and from time to time some of them have even asked me, as a technologist, do I do I look at a plethora of platforms, or do I do an inch wide, mile deep kind of a what should be the outlook? Let's say I'm a cloud technologist. Do I focus on a variety of cloud platforms, or I stick to, let's say, an AWS or a Azure or a Google Cloud or a hybrid cloud? Or similarly, if I look at an AI platform, because today almost every organization has an AI platform, and you have generic AI platforms versus you also have niche AI platforms for a specific domain or an industry. So do I take expertise in a niche, or do I look at Google AI, TensorFlow, etc., etc.? What is your advice to them?
So, in my experience of having worked with several startups, so we basically work on 3 major pillars of enterprise tech, digitization across the spectrum, and upcoming disruptive technologies. So, we of course work with a lot of these AI, ML related stuff, as well as the whole plethora of technologies that are upcoming, newer in the market, like quantum tech or federated learning, all the buzzwords as well. And in fact, I wanted to extrapolate the question that you had asked, kind of ringed a bell in my mind as well. And I also went on to certify myself in not only, say, an Amazon Cloud Fundamental, but also in Microsoft Azure Fundamentals and Google Cloud Basics as well. So I think what really matters is, do you have the high level understanding? Though these may be similar sounding technologies in different avatars, all of it is really looking at providing similar goals, similar objectives for the user. So for a company, we need to assess what are the business capability requirements rather than just looking at the technology alone. And for an individual, I think it depends totally on an individual's interest and his or her role, whether they would like to go on a depth path or on a breadth path.
Fair enough. I think you rightly said it's more an individual's decision whether they want to look at it at a depth or go across the breadth. I think I totally agree with you. It's an individual's prerogative at the end of the day. My next question is these complex digital transformation engagements, which was a buzzword couple of years back, but it started to pick up speed. But in the last 1 year and 2 months, a lot of organizations have no option. It's a question of survival. They have to go in that direction, right? So everybody is embarking on this complex digital transformation journey. And when you embark on this kind of a complex engagement, you need to have a variety of tools and components and modules. And my experience has been, how do I choose? Do I use an open source here, a proprietary software, or do I custom build it? So what are the considerations one must keep in mind? How do I make this decision? How do I make this choice?
So in fact, I would just roll this back and think about: are we thinking about open innovation versus a closed innovation? The open source comes in when we want to really get into the implementation path. This really lends us to think more about: are we thinking about the pros and the cons of open versus closed innovation? And of course, each has its own capabilities and advantages that it lends. But what we see in the age of the digital transformation today across sectors is that lot of things do not necessarily have to be built from scratch. There is merit in building upon a lot of existing literature, a lot of existing code base that are available for different purposes today. So from that perspective, I think there is a lot of merit in using open source as the base to start with, and then build on top of it using their own proprietary stuff, which we are seeing in the startup space, that they are actually building up a lot more of proprietary patented technologies which are very niche to different areas of operation. Now just think about our own daily lives. If we look at cooking, for instance, it is a combination again, right? We definitely source all of these vegetables and all of the spices required for these in a very generic manner. But when it actually comes to customization, what you would cook versus what your neighbor would cook would be totally dependent on your own personal choices and your own tastes. So I would really connect that to what we want to achieve in our workplaces as well, and what we want to deliver to our customers here, who are going to be our tasters at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. And this cooking anecdote is something that I'm going to remember. It was so subtly and nicely put. So, Shruti, coming to the other aspect that you work closely, you work with so many startups and you are in the midst of the startup ecosystem. Wanted to understand, is there any particular tech or a particular domain industry where you believe the innovation and acceleration is going to be much, much faster, compared to the rest? Is there something that you are seeing, that you're observing?
So, I take pride in coming from the communication industry, where it is just not about networking of technology, but networking of people as well. So, I think collaboration definitely has quite a lot of scope for improvement in the days to come in different avatars. So, today we are just talking over this medium, which is a LinkedIn medium. And I'm sure in the days and years to come, it is going to get even better. Having said that, I think the tools that we have today, which are much more closest to us, are areas like Internet of Things and 5G, which are picking up at greatest pace. And these will definitely evolve. And what we are also seeing, that the rollout of these technologies, say the enhancement of IoT and 5G, today 4G in most places, is actually leading to the development of many other allied use cases. Like, for example, edutech today. We are seeing that despite the lockdown everywhere, The students are able to stay connected thanks to the proliferation of the mobile technologies and broadband technologies. So, similar to these, I think communication will definitely play a huge role. Be it through machine-to-machine communication. For instance, again coming to my cooking example, you may even at some point of time go to our refrigerator and say, "Hey, what can I cook today?" And the refrigerator may throw up saying, "Hey, you have these items and you can choose to cook ABC things," and it can throw up whichever items you want to cook that day. So it can get to that level at some point of time. But I think there is still a long way to go, and it is going to take the aggregation of different kinds of technologies for this to happen.
I just hope, getting to the fridge and asking it to cook something for the day, I hope that's not very far. I hope we get to that pretty soon. It'll be a blessing for a lot of people. All right. Shruti, one question that I had, see, for, innovation and acceleration comes very naturally to startups. But, when we talk about large organizations, it is challenging. I can speak about GlobalLogic, being the digital engineering services company. We have really put in a lot of effort to make innovation core of every employee. So we have something called as 30 Hacks, which is a platform which we've been using to conduct hackathons, organize hackathons over the years. We have done several editions, and some of it in partnership with industry bodies, and some of it in collaboration with a specific customer for a specific domain. In fact, we are doing one in June next month, and the theme is dark. That has really helped us kind of inculcate the culture of innovation. Absolutely, we've managed to do that. But wanted to get your opinion on, are there any tips for how do we inculcate this culture of organizational entrepreneurship in, especially in large service organization? Do you have any pointers for that?
Sure, Nandini. One of my very first projects when I actually got onto the industry after graduating was in a project called AAA, which was about authentication, authorization, and accounting in the mobility space. But then I want to kind of draw a parallel to this AAA formula for entrepreneurial success for any company. I truly commend GlobalLogic for the steps that you have taken to promote innovation within your organization. I think the whole thing is all about, are we having an aligned vision, the first A here, because we need to ensure we are seeing the same goal, the same end vision, paths that lead us to the same destination. The second A is all about giving autonomy. I'm totally against micromanagement of things, though I'm a hardcore supporter of microservices, but totally against micromanagement. But I think this autonomy is what really gives people the wings to fly, think freely, and give wings to their ideas, give shape to their ideas. But these two A's are not sufficient. These two A's will determine that the third A, which is accountability, comes into shape. And that is most important also, because we want the employees to be accountable for their actions, the developments that they are bringing to the fore. Be it success or failure, doesn't matter. There is learning at the end of the day, and we want them to be accountable for that learning journey, which I think is extremely valuable. And that culture of encouraging not only successes but also failure and promoting the learning through that is unbeatable. At CISCO, we have had this culture where we have definitely empowered everyone within our organization. We've promoted people to experiment as much as possible and learn through this entire engagement journey. So this is a very tried and tested method for us also at CISCO.
Great. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Accountability and autonomy definitely goes a long way in promoting innovation.
Yeah, and you left the aligned vision. I think that's the first one that we need to get together on.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Shruti, tell me something. How do you know that a startup is going to click? I mean, how do you know that innovation and acceleration, they can do it? So, what are the ingredients you look for?
So again, there isn't a ready-made formula here. So I'm again similar to the other question that you gave me. I'm going to give you a very short answer and a long answer for all of these. So just like a triplet, we can probably look at a triple P formula here. And the first one that I would definitely look at is the product, because this is going to be having our customers at the heart of what we do. There is no joy in producing something that we produce for the sake of it, unless there is a pressing need for the customers to take it and derive value out of it. So I think getting the right product out, getting the product market fit is the biggest milestone for any startup as the first step. So this is something that we would definitely look for in all of these startups that we work with. The second one is, as I was subtly mentioning, this is all about people. As I was mentioning, it's just not about the networking and connecting of technology, but networking of people that matters most, because this is going to be not only connectivity that brings in the right team members, the right people in place. It also matters because you're going to get a good set of investors. You need a good set of influencers in the ecosystem, and you need to get to the right people on the customer side as well to reach out to and get the right personas buying at their places. So it's a very important component of getting the right connects and connecting the right dots also between all sorts of people. While you think there is somebody called an investor, that investor may actually be a whole maybe a huge influencer in a specific area. Maybe he is a huge influencer in the IoT space and may influence the purchasing decision, which brings us to the third P, which is all around the purchasing power. So are we pricing the product right? There is again no joy in producing something which we are selling at 10x the value that we are actually delivering to the customer. It has to be priced in accordance with the value that is being delivered. So if you see, the central theme cutting across all of these is the customer. We are entirely working with the customer in mind and making sure that we are addressing proactively as well as reactively the needs of what the market is looking for. And I think that is very, very key. Of course, the passion and the persistence that any founder, the founding team brings in, that is going to take them through the longer journey. Doing a startup is, it may sound like a buzzword, it may sound sexy, but it is definitely not. I vouch for it. It is a very, very arduous journey, and those who have
Absolutely.
actually gone through it will tell you
Yeah,
how hard it is. And
absolutely.
in fact, I would say they are probably even the freedom fighters and the digital warriors of today, who are actually
Right.
coming to the fore, shedding their sweat and time and money and helping make lives better for us.
Absolutely, I like your the terminology digital warriors. I couldn't agree more. I have seen some startups up close and personal, so I know how hard they work. So many sleepless nights, and so many sacrifices they make. Which nobody seems to know. Everybody talks about unicorns when they get there, but it's a very tough journey, and it's not for everyone. Absolutely. I'll take one last question before we open the floor for audience's questions. You said you are in love with microservices. I've been closely associated with a few engagements where we deal with microservices. Sometimes I feel it's overrated, and sometimes I feel, do we actually need a microservices architecture? Could it have been better without it? And how many microservices do we need? Because the more you have, it also adds to the complexity, right? So what did your, since you said you are in love, I just wanted to pick your brain on this one.
So again, on this, I don't really have like an yes or no answer. It's like asking anybody, do you think this vaccine is better or that vaccine is better? We don't have a choice today, right? It all about the choices we have at hand, what is available to us today, make the best out of it. So from that perspective, if specific functionality is available to us in a given format, I think I would do all it takes to go for it in the available format. So what really means to me is, am I, through technology as the core, as the foundation, is it helping me to realize it and deliver impact? So that's what technology is, the tool for us at the end of the day.
Perfect. Can I start getting the questions on the chat so that I can ask Shruti? And all right. So while we are waiting for the questions, let me just ask one more question, Shruti. Shruti, tell me something. Do startups which are more, purpose driven and impact community at large, do you think that creates more impact or that are prone to more success? Is there any correlation at all?
No, I think that's a very perfectly timed one, Nandini, because we are in the middle of a crisis. And if you ask me today, what is community driven, what is impact driven? In the past, older normal, I would have said, something that saves water or something that saves electricity is probably the best one. Today, even a SaaS startup, something that's delivering value to the customer, simplifying their workflows, reducing the time that they are spending at the call centers, the contact centers. Everybody is creating smaller increments, smaller changes, difference to the people who are actually consuming all of these services. So I think while it definitely is great to think about startups that are directly aligned to purposes that are serving the community, I think today the boundaries are pretty blurred. And even those
Yeah.
that are not directly on this line can also contribute in a great manner.
All right. So, Shruti, this is a question you will definitely like since you come from a hardcore telecom background. It's a telecom focused question. Will the market for 5G services be the same as it is for 4G?
Yeah, so I've literally lived through this. We've seen from 0 to 300 plus customers across the globe. Um, So I'm sure the end impact is definitely going to be even much higher, I would say, because that's been the core vision, the core purpose with which the 3GPP and all of these standard bodies have all been working on. And the service providers across the globe are also aligned and, in fact, consolidating as well in different forms. And the trend today is also such that a lot more of applications are now building on top of these services, the 4Gs of the world, and optimize on them. Today we are able to reach to the farmer who doesn't have access to broadband connectivity but is still able to use a 4G SIM on his mobile and have access to satellite based weather data and have access to credit facilities based on that. So these are things that are being enabled today because of 4G. And I'm sure it is definitely going to get better with the advent of 5G, though we need to still wait and see what the entire form is going to be.
Okay, I've got some very interesting questions. How do you differentiate the benefits versus drawbacks of closed innovation? Companies like Ola, Amazon are highly successful in their closed innovation. Though they make their innovation into open source, they keep doing their closed innovation. Not sure if they borrow the open source innovation. What is your opinion?
So that's a very thought-provoking question and a very different perspective as well. No, so I don't really argue against this. Definitely, we are seeing in the market that Ola and Amazon have been doing significantly good work in the markets that we are around. But we've also seen the merit of the likes of Linux and Tesla when they opened up their patents and such. We've seen the kind of growth that they are spurring, just not in their own industry, but for many more others to come on board and adopt, say, an EV of sorts, or a new technology in supply chain or in retail, whatever it may be. So it's just not about empowering our own selves. It's about empowering the entire ecosystem. If we can do that, we can be a larger than life player in that space.
Absolutely. What do you think of the use of blockchain in IoT area and its future?
So again, this has been something that's been spoken about for quite a while now. We all know what are some of the pros of blockchain today and some of the challenges in actually getting it implementation as well. Uh, Definitely, I do endorse the fact that in areas now, which is much more relevant, like pharmacy, vaccination supply, and things like that, if we did have blockchain deployed, it would make things much more seamless and simpler. And IoT could, at the intersection of it, play a huge role in making sure it is all flawlessly flowing. But I think there is still a gap between there's like the gap between the reality and what is still being developed today. The potential and the reality, there is a slight mismatch, and I see there is scope for us to work on it and make sure there is a possibility for it to get better. Unfortunately, we don't have very standardized stacks for it, though we have standard blockchains that are in operation, but we've still not seen we've not seen it revealing its complete potential as yet.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. Someone from a small town wants to innovate. There is desire but lack of resources. Any guidance for such people?
I think you're the most fortunate of people, because we are actually sitting in the comforts of our cities and assuming that this is a problem and trying to innovate for it. And this is only a fraction of the real set of problems around the world. If people in the smaller towns, you are actually seeing some problems, you're actually near the heart of it. You could actually innovate and even beta trial it in your own surroundings and get it out in a much better shape. I was a couple of days back talking to one of my friends sitting in the tier 3 town of South India. So he had actually moved from the Silicon Valley, from Bangalore to that town, and he was, confused whether it was the right decision to move back to that town. But when we actually spoke in detail, we found out that he was sitting much more closer to some of the problems in that town, which was an export. It was the epicenter of export in South India, and the problems that are being seen there is at the heart of the supply chain issues, the warehousing issues, the quality issues that we are talking about today in PowerPoints and slides. So for someone to sit there and actually innovate much closer to the producer ecosystem, I think they are at a vantage point. So today, if you just have access to broadband or 4G or 3G, you have the world at your disposal. You have everything you need on the internet that you can get access to. So, in fact, I would be envious of you at this point. Nandini, would you want to unmute yourself?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I was saying you're absolutely right. We can only speculate what the problem could be while they possibly are experiencing it from very close quarters. We have one more question. How good is authentication to M2M communication? What are the existing successful methods?
Sorry, I lost your last part. Can you say it again for me, please?
Sure, sure. I will read that question again. How good is authentication to M2M communication? What are the existing successful methods?
So now let me just talk about security, because this is securing M2M communication is what is the bigger issue being of the concern in here. So on one side of the spectrum is where it opens up a whole plethora of opportunities for us to open, and the other spectrum which opens a back door for a lot more people to penetrate into the system. Be it cars or be it our own refrigerators or toasters or even smartwatches, if they want to add value to our lives. So each of them today have very unique mechanisms for authentication, and which is not heavily standardized, which definitely brings about gaps at all of these points. So I think while there are a lot of works in the standards being advocated and going on to study this in its entirety, end-to-end problems, I'm sure this still can't be complete yet. because the range of M2M devices that we are going to see in the future is going to be immense. Everything that we see around us, right from water bottles to books, are going to get digitized in a big way, which means that we will need to slowly ramp up bit by bit, pixel by pixel, and get to these better mechanisms and learn through the journey.
Absolutely. I think we have addressed most of the questions. My apologies if I have missed any. So I will just summarize some of the takeaways. Thank you so much, Sruthi. Very interesting. I loved your 3 A's for an organization to successfully implement innovation at the grassroots level. They need to ensure that there is alignment to vision, there is autonomy, and there is accountability. And for startups to be successful, there are 3 + 2, 5 P's actually, not just three. They have to look at people, product, the pricing, and of course, passion and persistence, without which a startup cannot be successful. I loved what you said about the digital highway, being the most important medium in the coming times. I think without that, especially given the times that we are living in, that's going to be the most critical, most critical aspect of it. And thank you so much for your views on open versus closed innovation, and the focus on collab tools in the coming times, in the next few years at least, till we all get back to the old normal, which we all now seem to have kind of forgotten about it. I want to thank you, Shruti, and I also want to thank all the people who logged in. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hope you guys, got some good takeaways. With this, I would like to hand it off to the organizing team.